Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
100% paparazzi free Unspun.
Paparazzi free?
Paparazzi. Yeah, no paparazzi here. I don't know if you caught that this morning. There's a CBC story. They had a picture of the mayor of Vancouver sitting at the Sylvia Hotel in the West End, I think a couple days ago, with more than 6 people at his table. So he was caught out and apologized and said it was only for a brief second, and they were all people in my bubble. And but it's one of those things you're like, it's one of the things that's not appealing about being in politics, that people are watching you and taking pictures and then sending them to media. And it was, he knew he screwed up, and there he is.
It's not a great example, I'm going to say, when we're all trying to be calm, be kind, and be safe and not react to the Covidiots. I'm really trying to control. I'm trying to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
When I got that through my DM on Twitter from Ryan, the guy that who saw it, took the video of it and sent it out to everybody. And I just thought to myself, number one, I don't know that this is right now. So I couldn't confirm it in the moment. So my initial anger at it, I was able to calm that down, because I'm thinking, okay, good for this guy, Ryan, on social media, who spotted it and then recorded it and then left, because that's what everybody there should have done. The fact that we're talking about this is kind of nuts. Like, haven't we been pretty clear and consistent over the last, almost 6 months now, that you can gather, but everybody needs to be 6 feet or 2 meters apart. And that gathering should be under 50.
I know. So we have the drum circle this weekend in Vancouver, and then we have the Kelowna thing where Bonnie Henry's talking about 1,000 people as a result are now in isolation. This is a significant impact. We've had the protests, a lot of Black Lives stuff, and the Premier talked about that today, saying there have been occasions where big crowds have got together, and luckily, and it is really luck that nothing has resulted because of that. And we don't know what will happen because of the drum circle, but if there was one person there that had it, now there's going to be 3, and then 6, and then 9, and then it's really, that's the problem.
Let's unpack that a little bit more, just for the listener who's maybe not as engaged in the news cycle and wants to be, because you and I are very much watching all of this so closely and covering it, the minutia of it. What you were saying about 1,000 people now being impacted by that one small-ish, on the grand scheme of things, small-ish group of people with
indoor party,
asymptomatic. Nobody came there sick and knew that they were going to do this. Nobody did it on purpose. It's just an example of how quickly one event can turn into 1,000 people now isolating on their own for 2 weeks because they happen to walk by or talk to somebody who could be. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, except for it's not bacon.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And of course, when somebody, and they will be somebody who will die as a result of that party, how do you, as a person and this person didn't know they had COVID when they went to the party, but they went to a party that didn't fit the criteria that's being sent to us, that we've been trusted by Dr. Bonnie Henry to follow. And BC has been a leader in this, and we've been very, very good. We haven't required massive policing or anything like that. This is the result of what happens if you don't follow the rules, and the rules aren't very complicated or very strict comparatively to what we're seeing in California or Florida or Toronto or Calgary, or
you're right.
We don't even have a face mask regulation here, and so it really is it's on our shoulders as citizens of this province to be responsible. And so I'm hopeful. I mean, Charles Gauthier from the DVBIA tweeted out, put a fence around Third Beat because of the, and I'm like, I tweeted back going, I think that goes against our principles of what we've been doing. I think, and I hope these anomalies are anomalies. If they happen, they remind us, like, this is bad. Don't mess around with this. Remember this, and then, be careful. Stop it.
And I think it's an awareness piece also, George. And when we're talking about Kelowna, certainly, I mean, we were all 20-somethings once. And that's what we're looking at here with a younger set of people. The drum circle is both younger or perhaps older who don't consume news in a way that we would all hope, particularly in a pandemic. Most of our adult lives have been spent doing things. As long as we're not hurting others, then we're okay. But in a pandemic, we actually can hurt others simply by gathering closely together. And that is the lesson here. And we're doing such a great job of it here in British Columbia. And I believe, like you just stated, so I'm pretty much reiterating what you said, the fact that we haven't had anything be super lockdown mandatory happening. It's been all about buy-in. The science is there. The directives are clear. The fact that our provincial health officer, this is not at all her first rodeo. There are references. She is using crisis management speak. Because every day I watch her briefings, and yesterday on the Wednesday briefing, I found myself really like counting down to 3 o'clock, because Wednesdays were releases for the last few weeks, but they've come back to doing these live briefings. And I found myself really nervous as a citizen, wondering what the numbers would be. I was a little bit scared. I was nervous. And I think if everybody in the province gets just a little taste of that without somebody they love dying or being significantly impacted by this, it would be great. Could we just all spread the word to our 20-somethings? Could we just right? But it's like, I remember going, yeah, sure, Mom, and walking out the door and then doing exactly what I told her I wasn't going to do, because that's what you do. That's what kids do. But in a pandemic, we need to go the extra mile, and maybe going down to Third Beach and having someone stationed there at sunset when the drum circles usually happen. And there's somebody there going, move along. This isn't happening here until we have a vaccine. Move along. Just move along.
I ran into a friend of mine who had COVID. He lives in my building, and he's, he was in intensive care. He went through many weeks, and he's in his, he's in his 60s. Rough time, lost a ton of weight, but he's out of the woods now. And I said, well, where do you think you got it? He said, I don't know. I was literally not doing anything. I was self-isolated like everybody. I'm in my 60s. I'm thinking I gotta be careful. The only thing I could think, I went to this grocery store and I bought some food in the line. It was pre us all doing the 6-foot thing. And I was in lineup, the long lineups in that store always, as there is. And I guess I was in that lineup for 10 or 15 minutes, probably. That's the only thing I can think of where I would. And you're thinking, holy crap. The guy just had to get some food, and it was early on, before we really knew what the scope of this was. And there he was, almost on death's door. It just shows you, though, it doesn't take much. And so be careful. The
distancing, that is the number, like, wash hands, stay 2 meters apart. Anybody that doesn't live in your house, stay 2 meters apart. Everywhere. And if you're going into a space where there are a bunch of people that you don't know and you can't physically distance, then let's hope everybody is donning a mask, because that's the only way to be safe. I've also found, I'm going to add this one thing that I think is so fascinating, is that where it used to be you need a designated driver or the key master, the person that would take all the keys at the party, now you need a contact person. So everybody that comes to your house, like, we almost need to reinvent the digital guest book, right? So just keeping track of where you went and who you saw when you did go there. And that's why they want that app that identifies the people that are strangers to you, that you wouldn't go, hey, can I get your name because I stood behind you in the lineup at the grocery store? Yeah. We're trying to just trace all of this is the next incarnation.
She talked about how complicated that is because of the number of people at that party, and that's where it gets complicated. But iPhones are pretty good. We've talked about this before. You can look and you can see every single spot you've been in, every single address. If you've had your phone with you, you'll know. You can see exactly where you've been, and you can go and talk to every. I mean, can you imagine that call? Hi, I was at this party in Kelowna, and now I might have COVID, and sorry.
You need to isolate.
Sorry, Grandma. Like, what?
No, I can't.
What?
That scares the bejesus out of me.
Yes.
It does. Let's move on to some politics. We've got some unspun focus here, specifically, and there are a couple of people that are getting on us on social media about being so hyper Metro Vancouver or even hyper Vancouver, but keeping track of this.
Our fan from the north.
Our fan from the north. So sorry, we're going to do that again because it is a hot topic. Last week we were talking a lot about this development at the corner of Broadway and Birch, where the Denny's used to be, and how there was supposed to be a vote on it, and then the vote was postponed because Councillor Sarah Kirby-Young had not watched one of the meetings and had wanted to sort of just step away from the vote. But it was the other councillors who were like, no, we'll postpone the vote so that you can vote. And now that we've seen the results of the vote,
what happened?
Explain
6 to
it,
5,
George.
6 to 5. So
You called it.
Sarah's vote was the vote that made it possible. It would have been a tie potentially if it had been the same breakdown the 10 days ago. So the mayor was onto something. He must have known. He had some backroom chatting, and he knew that they were probably going to be a 5 to 5 without her there, or without her recusing herself because she hadn't watched the tapes, the videos, and so perhaps rightly so for this purpose of democracy. Because it would have been very frustrating to lose that at a 5-5, knowing that a person who was at most of the meetings didn't do a vote. So for the developer, win or lose, it was important, I think, to make sure everybody who was in attendance and had the ability to vote voted. So I agree with the mayor that making Sarah vote was important. And anytime there's a crucial vote like this, everybody needs to be there. And so, yeah, it passed. And, the arguments were all over the map. It was weird because there are different reasons from different people. You had Colleen Hargreaves opposed and Jean Swanson opposed, completely different ends of the spectrum of politics. And for completely different reasons in a way, but sort of the same about how, I don't really understand it, how development and building more units is going to make the city less affordable. It's math that doesn't add up to me. Anyway, so the vote was basically decided as we had talked about. The policies that met the criteria of the policies that currently exist at this development site met within. And
check the boxes.
Yeah, while frustrating to everybody who said that shouldn't be approved, that it was too high or too dense or in the wrong place or whatever, it met all the criteria that currently exists in the city of Vancouver for whatever against it for. And we've talked about this. I've been opposed to some of those policies that were in that, but they're the policies. And so the only reason to vote against this project was that you philosophically believe that it wasn't a good idea in general, because it met, and you agreed with the people that were opposed with it as a concept, but not as a policy. As a policy development, it met all the criteria. And you can have these conspiracy theories about developers and paying off this and that. No, it met the criteria that are set by the city of Vancouver, by the previous council mostly, that I was on, that were policies that I didn't always agree with. So there it is. It's approved. You think it's too high. I've always said 28 stories. It's Broadway. It's a block and a half from a new SkyTrain station. Come on.
Hold on, before you wrap up how I feel about it in your summation there, I get to actually comment on it because but here, I'm good with it. I mean that in a ribbing way, George. I love you and you get passionate.
Yeah, we've been on this a little, yeah.
But I can tell you with all honesty, having watched the process play out, I vote in municipal elections. I've had the opportunity to express my feelings about it, that it checks all the boxes. And the people that have listened to every meeting and are the people that are charged with making this final decision, now that the vote has taken place and I've seen that final document, let's build it. Okay. Because that's how I feel about, I'm no longer mad about 28 stories. That is what's happening in our democratic scenario here. And I want rental units for people to live in Vancouver. Would I prefer it to be slightly smaller in height based on what's currently around it? Yeah. But that it's going to grow to that height, you know what? That area is about to get a whole lot taller. And maybe the bulk of the towers will sort of grow around that. And maybe we can, as citizens, want it to maybe trickle out as it goes along and ebb and flow and be taller and lower and taller and lower and have some gentler density as opposed to a wall of tower. That can be my new feeling or my new soapbox that I get to be on. But I'm not mad at that vote, is my final sort of summary.
I apologize. I didn't mean that. I think we've had debates in the past about the height and stuff like that. I think that will be interesting.
You don't need to apologize, man. You don't need to apologize.
I think that will be interesting. I think it will be it was Rebecca Bly, I think she tried to refer it, or she was gonna, that there was wait till the Broadway plan is finished, let's deal with it then. And that's a little bit unfair because it's not within the Broadway plan. It's already clear that it's not. But that sort of potentially, she's a vote where you got to go, I wonder where she would land though if the Broadway plan comes back and it's super high density but designed as an overall concept, and of course it's a public process, and that the vote might not be as tight. So it'll be interesting to see how that Broadway plan, because it will come back with significant density in that area, and then the area where my office is and other areas. It won't be at Cambie because Cambie Street has strict regulations related to the view of City Hall from various parts of the city, but other areas are wide open. Main Street, look for
Arbutus.
Yeah, Arbutus.
That's where the
We
big
own all the
pushback's going to
property
be.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, the Arbutus.
So,
That neighborhood has a lot of NIMBYs, a lot of NIMBYs, and some YIMBYs. I mean, it's interesting to see both sides. Like when there were these sweeping statements, I was watching it all happen sort of on the Twitter thread, and there were some people going, somebody's saying that everybody in this neighborhood is against it, and I live in this neighborhood and I'm not against it. Like there's some big paintbrushes being thrown around. So I hope the planning reflects everybody.
I think
to some degree.
There are more YIMBYs and NIMBYs for sure. If you look at the last election results, you have a mayor who was supportive of development and density. You had Hector's party, the S party, and he was very in supportive, and he got 15,000 votes, I think. You had Shauna Sylvester also in favor of density and development. You really only had the NPA who was kind of like, a little bit, we're not sure. We got little, basement suites or whatever they were saying.
Protecting the single family home-ish.
Yeah. So you're looking at the vote-wise from the mayors, a significant majority in support of the mayoral candidates that were pro-density. So if that's a bellwether or an analysis of what's potentially what the people of Vancouver want, I think that's telling.
Can we get to the bottom of what you have been calling for since I've known you, long before Unspun podcast, is some transparency with regard to budgets and spending and audits and such, sort of an independent need, as it were.
Yes, very surprising.
You gave it a thumbs up.
Yeah, the Auditor General of the City of Vancouver, which is basically will be a third party, distant person who will be able to analyze anything related to finances at the city, to put it very simply. I've argued that there needs to be more transparency at City Hall for years. I think there is a lot of frustration by residents in Vancouver about trusting City Hall. You saw that with the Birch project. You saw that saying, oh, somebody got paid off and all this stuff. You're going, well, probably not. But an Auditor General will provide the ability for you to then file a complaint or go through a process. If you feel like there is something that is not on, then you can go through this this department, which is going to cost $2 or $3 million a year to do the analysis. And so it's a double whammy in my mind. And I appreciate Colleen Hardwick's work on this one. She put it through, and it was her motion. And it was supported unanimously, which I was quite surprised by, because it has so it's got the whole public access to and complaint process, but also it provides a police kind of feel to the City Hall as far as staff. They now will have to go, if there is anybody corrupt, they're not. This will certainly stop them, and make them either go away or stop being corrupt. I don't, really think there is, but I think there's that perception, and this hopefully will create more support and belief that City Hall is trying to do what's right for the people of the city.
Let's hope for.
So we'll see, but it's going to cost a lot of money, and it will be frustrating for future governments because it will slow down a lot of stuff, and so people will have to understand that this could put on hold a whole bunch of different things. So I think there's going to be a lot of people going, why is the government so slow? And you go, well, part of the reason might be because of this Auditor General now. So it has that impact as well. It could slow down some things, and that will be frustrating as well. But
checks and balances are never a bad thing. I think it's an important piece of it. And I've always been fully on board with your calls of why is the budget not wide open, and then make it a ground up, as opposed to trying to add sort of sparkly things to the top. Let's talk about what needs doing and get our priorities straight. And that leads me directly into the Vancouver Park Board.
Our favorite topic.
George, I am so stressed out about this. I mean, I love my city. Say it weekly. I love this city. I love the parks of the city. I love Kitts Pool, and I am fine with having to make a reservation to go and swim laps at Kitts Pool. And I follow the Nostalgia Facebook page on Kitts now and then, because I love looking way back at the history of our city and how much we've grown up, how much we've literally grown up over the years. So somebody on that Facebook page yesterday, which is Wednesday, depending on when you're watching this or listening to the podcast, posted about having gone to Kitts Pool and the washrooms at Kitts Pool being closed. So they went to the washrooms at Kitts Beach, and how it was 5 paragraphs about the experience of going into the bathrooms at Kitts Beach, the biggest beach in Vancouver, the busiest spot, you know, probably maybe second to English Bay, but certainly Kits Beach is like packed.
And a really nicely designed and one of the newest bathroom
Exactly.
facilities. Mm-hmm.
And apparently it's an absolute COVID-19 debacle. No physical distancing, people bumping into each other, passing each other. There's no line to get in. It's just a massive humanity. In the women's washroom, I can only imagine what the men's washroom looks like. But people like getting in to wash their hands and do the thing, and the hand dryer is going constantly, just blowing germs everywhere. Like, they just spoke of it as, this is just a nightmare. And I'm thinking to myself, who's in charge of keeping that sorted and clean?
I wonder. The park board?
Yes.
Oh wait, but they're too busy doing a whole bunch of other things. And then, you know, it's so bizarre to me. Like, again, we rant on about park board, but I'm like, it's like, come on, you guys, priorities. We think the city of Vancouver is bad at priorities. My God, this park board is pathetic. So you see that, you get that story, and then on the same weekend, you see the RCMP or Vancouver Police with their 4x4 little patrol-y, bicycle-y thing, whatever the hell those things are,
ATVs
cruising around Jericho, ATVs,
yeah.
3 or 4 of them, looking for people who are drinking on the beach. Are you kidding me, guys? Go that way.
Go that way and fix what's broken.
Strathcona, I got some people in the washroom that are not socially distancing.
Yeah.
We got garbage over here. We got problems there. What are you doing? 3 of them cruising around on the beach on a nice sunny day, one of the first nice sunny days forever. And this is the priority, and it's no criticism of the VPD as an organization before anybody attacks me for, it's really priorities that the park board is setting, and they're the ones who say to the police, what do we want to focus on? Well, clearly they don't want to focus on Strathcona Park, where we now have 200 tents set up. We saw what happened at Oppenheimer and Crab Park, and we see what's happening in Stanley Park with bikes and cars and people angry there and no parking.
Did you see that? Did you hear about the counts there? Did you hear about the bike counts? The Tea House restaurant actually did an independent count of both sides of, in front of their restaurant and on the back side of the restaurant, counting, how did they put it? They did recreational cyclists and I can't remember the term that they used for the clip-ins, whatever, the hardcore cyclists. Whatever.
Oh, okay.
Right. So they released these numbers because the park board, the whole argument was going to be 10,000 to 15,000 bikes a day going through Stanley Park if we make it safe for everybody to have a designated lane. It hasn't even hit 10,000. One day since that change was there just barely 10,000 bikes through there of both. And most days it's like 2,500 or 900 or 3,000, like so off the prediction. Like, where's the accountability for that lobby to take that, to make that park so ugly with those cones? You know, I hate it, to decimate 2 iconic business locations in Prospect Point and the Tea House restaurant, and take out, you know, parking spots for disabled people. Like,
and just taking about a nice bike route that goes on the bottom, which is level along the seawall, which was a lovely bike route, a little bit precarious at points, which sometimes you have to get off your bike and walk. But still, you now have to ride up this hill. I know people say, oh, you can ride that hill, but my kid can't ride up the hill. Maybe he's not as athletic as other kids. We have to walk up that hill every time. I would much prefer to ride around the outside and have that beautiful view, as opposed to, I think the forest is nice, but there's lots of rides in the forest at Stanley Park. So you know, it's just misguided, and at least open up the seawall on the bottom for bikes for the ones who want to go that way. I agree. Bare minimum, just give us that.
Yeah. And stop with the madness and the lack of priorities. Because what's the thing that's happening as of Thursday, as of today? Park Board Commissioner Demers is like making some statements about bump tracks, like the kid bike. Yeah,
there's a park that they sort of self-made, dirt bikey park, and the park board said they had to remove this. It has to be removed. You can't have this because it's not what's allowed in that park. Maybe there's been complaints because it could be noisy and annoying to maybe neighbors, and it is sort of ad hoc, and it's kind of created their own little trail, and they've made little ramps and things like that. But for God's sakes, park board, we're in the middle of a crisis. Just chill out, man.
Go fix
still
Kits
haven't
Beach.
Approved alcohol on beaches, by the way. 21.
Why is that? Ugh. Why are we still
ugh, don't get me started. We'll see you in August or September. And then they're going to dismantle something that the kids who, if you have a kid and who's got a bike, and there's no, because the park board for so many years has not really done much as far as developing our park spaces for use. There's no real place for these kids to ride their bikes. When I was a kid, my bike was my car until I was like 16 when I had a car. Out in Langley, I would ride my bike everywhere, and we would ride the dirt bikes, like ride around the forest and all that kind of stuff. These kids live in the city. Their parks is all you got, and that's where you do your kind of trail riding, and they're taking it away from them. That's and Damaris is like, oh, but I'm really going to make it a priority to bring it back in the future. Yeah, right.
Thanks,
sure,
Dave.
Like you bringing back the 20 sites for drinking. I mean, this guy is so obstructionist. Is he stopping? The only thing he cared about was putting in the bike lanes in the Stanley Park with no process, but then he wants a process for the dirt bikes in this park. Like, where is the priorities where is the logic of these people? It's just maddening.
There isn't any. That's the answer to your question. Where's the logic? It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's such agenda driven politics in our park board, and that's broken. We got to dig deeper into this. I got so many questions for people who were on previous park boards, perhaps, or people that remember a time when the park board wasn't so agenda driven and it had very little to do with actual parks and agriculture and green space.
City Hall's no better. The agenda driven politics
Fair enough.
taking over
It makes
Vancouver
me nuts, George.
Really, really unfortunate. Yeah.
Okay, at George Affleck on Twitter, at Jody Vance on Twitter, at Unspun Podcast. You got to follow along there as we tweet and retweet things that we want to sort of keep our eyes on. Definitely you're listening to this wherever you get your podcast, or you're watching it on YouTube, but you get the fin, the weekday sort of summary of things that you need to read, columns you need to be engaging in and reading about, so you can stay engaged in local politics as we make the shift now to looking south of the border. We've only got 3 minutes here to keep inside our 30, but I want to talk a little bit. Oh, we didn't even mention the We Charity thing. We're not even going to get to the United States, dude.
What a nightmare.
Should Bill Morneau resign, do you think?
It's a miracle that he hasn't. I mean, this is significant. I mean, that check. I mean, I just find it quite surprising what they're getting away with, to be honest, from a conflict of interest point of view. It appears to me that these are clear conflicts, but Trudeau's agreed to be questioned, and that's good. We'll see. I mean,
I'm surprised. Are you surprised that he agreed to do that? I'm surprised that he didn't try and dodge that.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes, and if he can defend himself, so be it. But it's these kinds of things. Money is one of those things. Just like, I
can't believe that Bill Morneau cut that check for $41,000 to reimburse the We Charity for travel for his family for events, and then it was 2 events. Where are you going for $20,000 in travel expenses with your family? Yeah. Where you don't even really remember, I don't remember that we didn't pay for that trip. It's like, really? But then it was set up through other people. He thought he had reimbursed it already. Then he was made aware that he hadn't already. So now it might be true. It might be true.
I mean, I think that the opposition is fairly ineffective because they're in the middle of looking at, certainly Conservatives are looking for a leader. The NDP have kind of lumped themselves in with the Liberals because of the whole sitting session and how they govern right now. Yeah. And the bloc is the bloc. And so, it's challenging to really raise the ruckus in the House when they're not really sitting the way they usually sit. So that's where we are. And we'll see what happens when the new leader of the Conservatives come in and see how they manage this. But there's definitely an opportunity for an opposition to go hardcore in this.
Let's ignore Donald Trump for today's podcast.
Yes.
Let's just ignore him for today. Sparkly things. Bye. Because the NHL team in Seattle has a name.
And I feel like I have to say it this way. The Seattle Kraken. It just seems like, I don't know.
Release the Kraken.
The Kraken. Yeah, cool. I think it's a cool name. I mean,
I'll buy the t-shirt.
It's a historical, related to Norwegian sea monster, I believe is the history. Mm-hmm. If you don't know Seattle's Scandinavian history is significant. There's a lot of Scandinavians. There's hospitals named after there's lots of Scandinavian history in Seattle. So, it's kind of cool. I think it's a bit of an homage to that, but it's also kind of a cool name. It doesn't, there's no ethnic problem. I don't think there's no. Like we're seeing with the Edmonton Eskimos or the Edmonton, what are they called now?
They are the Edmonton Football Club or the Edmonton Football Team, and they're trying to find a way to keep the green and gold logo with the 2 E's, so they'll come up with the second E later. I think they should just be called the double E's and leave it.
Double E's.
Go.
Yeah.
Double
so
E's.
The Kraken, can't see any conflict with that, and it's kind of cool. And of course, lots of logos and lots of dancing creatures and lots of merchandise opportunities. And I'm sure they did the math on that.
Absolutely. Todd Lewicki at the helm, you know that was the case because he was here at Orca Bay. He was the one who brought the Greater Vancouver Open here, the PGA Tour stop. I had the opportunity to work with Todd Lewicki. He remains one of my all-time favorite leaders. I've never felt more inspired and engaged as an employee and actually a volunteer largely on the Greater Vancouver Open. He is brilliant, and that there are great things happening in Seattle for this hockey team. And
Could be trouble for the Canucks.
Let's see what happens. Also, quickly, because we're out of time, but my middle this week is really a huge ask, but in really seeing some very, very good friends in need of mental health supports and not being able to afford it, and specifically for kids. I mean, we can talk about the impacts of mental health issues on the downtown east side. We can talk about it throughout society, but those who have
our personal experiences with it. I mean, if you have been impacted by mental health, especially with kids, it's it's a big issue, and I recommend people read your column and go to the orca.ca and check it out, because it's important. This is a generational problem we need to fix, and it's going to take a generation to fix the homelessness, to fix everything, and a lot of it starts at the mental health level, and a lot of it starts with kids.
And that was pretty much my message. Thank you for sharing it, George. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.